You see this dresser, Alex? I spent 40 hours carving those drawer pulls. 40 hours of my life I'm never getting back. And if I pick up a brush right now, I'm basically gambling those hours on a spin of the roulette wheel. One stray cat hair or a heavy-handed stroke, and I've turned a masterpiece into a topographical map of regret.
Always so dramatic. It's just paint, Tiger. Or stain. Or whatever goop you're putting on today. But I get it. You're finally ready to admit that your old school brush and bucket method is basically Stone Age technology.
It's not about being old school, it's about physics. Brushing is like trying to mow a lawn with a pair of scissors. Spraying? Spraying is like having a tiny localized weather system that only rains perfection. It's faster, it's smoother, and honestly, it's the only way to get a finish that doesn't look like it was applied by a caffeinated squirrel.
Okay, but for the rest of us who don't have a dedicated clean room and a $5,000 turbine system, isn't spraying just a great way to turn your entire garage and your lungs the color of antique walnut?
That's the secret they don't want you to know. You don't need a NASA-grade laboratory. I've seen guys produce glass-smooth finishes in a driveway with a setup that costs less than a decent cordless drill. But there's a learning curve. You can't just point and pray. If you do, you'll end up with alligator skin or a finish that has the structural integrity of wet tissue paper.
Point and pray. I like that. That's definitely what I did the first time I used a rattle can on my mailbox. It looked like a blueberry muffin that exploded.
Rattle cans are the gateway drug, but a real spray gun like an HVLP, high volume, low pressure, that's where the magic is. It's all about atomization. You're taking a liquid and shattering it into a billion microscopic beads. If those beads are the right size and they hit the wood at the right speed, they flow together like a mountain stream. If they're too big, you get orange peel. Too small, and they dry before they even land.
So it's basically chemistry and weather control. No pressure. Before we get into the how-to, tell me about the don't do. What's the absolute worst Tiger-style disaster you've had with a spray gun?
Oh, take your pick. But the one that still haunts my dreams involved a set of kitchen cabinets and a very humid Tuesday. I was rushing. Mistake number one. I didn't check the viscosity. Mistake number two. I basically pumped out finish that had the consistency of pancake syrup. I finished the last door, walked away feeling like a king, and came back 20 minutes later to find that every single vertical surface had developed curtains. The lacquer had literally sagged off the wood in giant plastic waves. I had to sand the whole mess back to bare wood. I cried a little, just a little.
I would have cried a lot and then sold the house.
That's the thing about learning. You shouldn't do it on your mother-in-law's heirloom table. You find a stack of scrap plywood and you treat it like a Ferrari. You spray until your arm moves like a robot and you stop thinking about the trigger.
You mentioned viscosity. I've seen people using those little funnel cups. Is that really necessary? Can't you just feel if it's runny enough?
If you've been doing it 30 years, maybe. But for everyone else, use the cup. It's like a recipe. If the finish takes 40 seconds to drain through that hole, and the manual says it needs to be 20, you're trying to force a bowling ball through a garden hose. You add thinner, bit by bit, until it runs like warm cream. If it looks like something you'd put on waffles, you're going to have a bad time.
And I'm guessing thinness depends on what you're actually shooting?
Exactly. Shellac and lacquer are the darlings of the spray world. They're thin, they dry before the dust even knows they're there, and they melt into the previous layer. You can spray milk paint or dye too. But if you try to shove heavy exterior latex through a tiny 1.0 millimeters needle, you'll just hear the motor screaming in agony while the gun spits out occasional blobs of sadness.
Blobs of Sadness. I think I've seen that band in concert. So we've got the right thickness, we've got our scrap wood. Walk me through the actual motion, because I see people doing this rainbow arc with their wrists, and even I know that looks wrong.
The wrist arc is the mark of the amateur. If you arc your wrist, the gun is 6 inches from the wood in the middle and 12 inches away at the ends. You get a heavy stripe in the center and a dusty, dry mess on the edges. You have to move your whole arm like it's on a sliding rail. Keep the gun exactly 10 inches away, perfectly perpendicular, the whole way across.
And the trigger timing? I see people just holding it down like they're hosing off a sidewalk.
No, it's a dance. You start moving your arm before you pull the trigger. You sweep past the edge of the wood, hit the trigger, sweep across, release the trigger, and then stop moving. If you stop moving while the trigger is pulled, you've just dumped a gallon of finish in one spot. We call that piling up, and it's the fastest way to turn a table into a lake.
What about the overlap? I always miss spots and then try to spot fix them, which usually makes it look like the wood has a skin disease.
The 50% rule is the law of the land. Each pass should cover half of the previous one. It feels like you're overdoing it, but that's how you get that seamless uniform coat. And for the love of all that is holy, start with the edges and the inside of the cabinets first. If you do the big flat top first and then try to spray the legs, you're going to get overspray or dry spray landing on your beautiful flat surface, and it'll feel like sandpaper.
Okay, let's talk shop environment. You said you don't need a booth, but you also said you don't want to turn your lungs into a walnut forest. How do we stay alive and keep the wife from complaining about the smell?
Ventilation is non-negotiable. If you can't smell the wood anymore because the fumes are making you see double, you failed. A simple box fan in a window with a cheap furnace filter taped to the back to catch the overspray dust works wonders for a small shop. And wear a respirator, not a dust mask, a real respirator with organic vapor cartridges.
I remember you telling me once about the time you sprayed in a closed garage and your neighbor knocked on the door because they thought the house was on fire.
Not my finest hour. The fog can get thick. But that's why HVLP is so great. It's designed to put the finish on the wood, not in the air. High pressure systems are like a hurricane. HVLP is like a heavy mist. You waste less money and you can actually see what you're doing.
What about the invisible enemies? Temperature and humidity. I know you hate them.
They are the gremlins of finishing. If it's too hot, the finish dries in the air. We call that sandy finish. If it's too humid, the moisture gets trapped under the finish and it turns cloudy. We call that blushing. It looks like your wood is turning into a ghost. If you see that happening, put the gun down, go have a sandwich, wait for the weather to behave.
Is there a cheat code for blushing, or are you just stuck with a ghost table?
There's a thing called blush retarder. It's basically a chemical that tells the finish to slow down and relax. It keeps the film open longer so the moisture can escape. But honestly, the best tool is a thermometer and a hygrometer. If it's over 70% humidity, I'm not spraying anything I care about.
Let's talk about the aftermath. Cleaning the gun. Every time I think about getting into spraying, I imagine an hour of scrubbing tiny brass parts with a toothbrush while cursing my existence.
It's the tax you pay for the speed. But here's the truth. If you're spraying water-based finishes, it takes 5 minutes. Run some clean water through, wipe the needle, done. If you're using lacquer, you use thinner. The key is never, ever let the finish dry inside the gun. If it dries in those tiny ports, you're not a woodworker anymore. You're a surgeon trying to perform a bypass on a piece of hardware.
So basically, don't be lazy.
Precisely. The gun is your best friend, but she's a diva. Keep her clean, keep her fed with the right viscosity, and she'll make you look like a genius.
You make it sound so poetic. But I know you. I know there's a pro tip you're holding back. Something you learned the hard way that isn't in any of the popular woodworking articles.
Lighting. Everyone worries about the gun, but nobody talks about the light. You need a raking light, a bright lamp set low and to the side. It reflects off the wet finish as it lands. If you can't see the wet line, you're flying blind. You won't know if you're getting a smooth coat or a dry mess until it's too late. I want to see that reflection like a mirror following my spray gun across the board.
A raking light. Okay, I can do that. That sounds like something a detective would use in a noir film. Where were you the night the lacquer sagged, Tiger?
I was in the shop, Alex. I was always in the shop.
So, final verdict. Is it worth the hassle for the guy or gal at home with one project every few months?
Look, finishing is the last 5% of the job, but it's 100% of what people see. You can build the most perfect, hand-cut dovetails in the world, but if the finish is clumpy or full of brush marks, it looks like a middle school project. Spraying gives you that factory-perfect look that makes people ask, wait, you actually made this? That feeling? That's worth every second of cleaning the gun.
I guess I'm buying a spray gun this weekend. But if my garage turns blue, I'm sending the cleaning bill to the Tiger Den.
Fair enough. Just remember, keep your arms straight, keep your passes overlapping, and for heaven's sake, don't spray the cat.
No promises on the cat.
Seriously, though, the takeaway here is that spraying isn't about being a professional. It's about being patient. It's about respecting the chemistry and practicing on the garbage so the masterpiece survives. If you can do that, you'll never pick up a brush again.